The lawnmower's blade caught on something buried in the tall grass. A rusted chain, maybe from an old swing set, and Hudson's world flipped upside down. He tumbled forward, slamming into the earth with a thud that knocked the breath from his lungs, dirt smearing his cheeks like war paint. From the porch, Wyatt's voice sliced through the humid air like a knife. "You okay down there, kid? Or did the grass finally fight back?" Hudson lay there for a beat, heart pounding not from the fall, but from the way Wyatt's laugh wrapped around him, deep, gravelly, laced with that easy Midwestern drawl that made everything sound like an invitation. He pushed himself up on scraped palms, spitting out a blade of grass, and met Wyatt's gaze across the yard. Those piercing blue eyes, crinkled at the corners from years of squinting into the sun, holding him captive like he'd been caught stealing more than just a glance. In that split second, Hudson knew this job, this man, was about to unravel every straight-laced thread he'd spent 24 years weaving around his life. Hudson wiped the sweat from his brow with the back of his forearm, the summer sun baking the back of his neck like it had a personal grudge. It was his third week mowing lawns in this sleepy corner of upstate New York, a gig he'd snagged through a faded Craigslist ad to pay for community college tuition. Bills didn't care about dreams, and Hudson's dream, hell, he wasn't even sure what it was anymore. Graphic design, writing, something that let him escape the endless loop of his parents' expectations back in the trailer park outside Buffalo. Be a man, son. His dad would grunt over lukewarm Bud Lights, eyes glued to the TV flickering with football highlights. Hudson had nodded along, played the part, high school quarterback, straight-A student, the golden boy who never rocked the boat. But boats rocked themselves sometimes. Like now, as he yanked the mower's cord again, the engine sputtering to life with a reluctant roar. The yard was a beast. Overgrown fescue waving like it owned the place. Weeds choking the flower beds Wyatt swore he'd get to someday. Wyatt Harlan, 42, divorced, and built like the oak trees lining his property. Solid, unyielding, with arms that strained against the sleeves of his faded flannel even in July heat. He'd answered the door that first day with a cold cores in hand, sizing Hudson up like a horse at auction. "You handle equipment okay, kid?" Wyatt had asked, eyebrow arched, and Hudson had stammered something about his grandpa's old John Deere, cheeks burning under that scrutiny. Now, as Hudson pushed the mower in neat rows, stealing glances at the porch where Wyatt lounged in a wicker chair, boots propped on the railing, he felt that burn again. Not embarrassment. Something hotter, deeper, twisting in his gut like a live wire. Wyatt was scrolling his phone, thumb flicking lazily, but every so often he'd look up, really look, and Hudson's pulse would stutter. What was it about him? The salt and pepper stubble shadowing his jaw? The way his laugh lines deepened when he teased about Hudson's city boy gripes on the humidity? Or maybe it was the loneliness etched into his posture, shoulders carrying the weight of a life half-lived after his ex-wife skipped town with their savings and a yoga instructor half his age. By noon, the yard was half-tamed, sweat soaking Hudson's tank top to his skin. He killed the engine and chugged from his water bottle, throat working visibly. Wyatt ambled over, tossing him a fresh Gatorade from the cooler on the porch. "Looking good out here," Wyatt said, voice low, like they were sharing a secret. Their fingers brushed in the exchange. Accidental, electric, and Hudson jerked back like he'd touched a stove burner. Thanks. It's coming along," Wyatt chuckled, clapping a hand on Hudson's shoulder, the touch lingering a beat too long. Loosen up, kid. World's not gonna end if you spill a little sweat. His palm was warm, calloused from years of carpentry, and Hudson's skin prickled under it, a shiver racing down his spine despite the heat. He mumbled something about finishing up and retreated to the mower, heart hammering. What the hell was that? He'd dated girls, sweet, fumbling hookups in the back of pickups, kisses that tasted like cherry lip gloss and obligation. This was different. Dangerous. The afternoon dragged, the sun dipping lower, painting the sky in strokes of orange and pink. Hudson edged the driveway, gravel crunching under his sneakers, when Wyatt called out again. "Hey, you eat yet? Got ribs on the grill." Figured you earned 'em. It wasn't a question, more a statement, and Hudson's stomach growled in betrayal. He hesitated, wiping his hands on his jeans. "I don't want to impose, man." "Impose? This is America. Barbecue's a constitutional right." Wyatt grinned, flipping the tongs like a gunslinger, and Hudson caved. Why not? It was just food. Just two guys shooting the shit. They ate on the back deck, plates piled with smoky ribs, coleslaw dripping mayo, and Wyatt's homemade cornbread that flaked apart like heaven. Beer flowed easy, local IPAs with names like Empire State of Mind that Wyatt cracked jokes about. Hudson laughed harder than he had in months, the knot in his chest loosening with each swig. Wyatt talked about his shop in town, custom furniture that sold to weekenders from the city, pieces carved from reclaimed barn wood. Gotta honor the scars, you know? Makes it real. His eyes locked on Hudson's, intense, and Hudson swallowed hard, sauce smearing his thumb. "You got that too," Wyatt said suddenly, nodding at Hudson's arms. Lean muscle from hauling hay bales back home, faint scars from a childhood fall off the roof chasing a frisbee. Stories in the skin. "What's yours say?" Hudson shrugged, heat creeping up his neck. "Nothing much. Just a dumb kid being dumb." But Wyatt leaned in, elbows on the table, like he was reading a book Hudson didn't know he'd written. Dumb kids grow into men who surprise themselves. Bet that's your story. The words hung there, heavy as the humid air, and Hudson's fork clattered against his plate. Surprise himself? Yeah. Like realizing midway through mowing that he couldn't stop picturing Wyatt's hands. Not on a beer bottle, but on him. Guiding, claiming. He shoved the thought down, deep where it belonged, and changed the subject to the Mets' latest slump. Wyatt let it slide, but his gaze lingered, knowing. Dusk settled as Hudson packed his gear into his beat-up Ford pickup, the tailgate creaking in protest. Wyatt walked him out, hands in his pockets, the porch light casting long shadows. "Same time next week? Yard's got a mind of its own." "Wouldn't miss it," Hudson said, and meant it more than he should. He climbed in, engine rumbling to life, and as he pulled away, Wyatt's silhouette in the rearview, strong, solitary, stirred that wire again, twisting tighter. That night, in his cramped apartment above a laundromat in Ithaca, Hudson stripped down for a shower, steam fogging the mirror. Water cascaded over him, hot and punishing, but it did nothing to rinse away the day's residue. The brush of fingers, the weight of a stare, the ache blooming low in his belly. He braced a hand against the tile, head bowed, and let his other hand wander, tentative, guilty. Wyatt's name escaped his lips in a whisper, a curse and a prayer, as release crashed over him like a wave he hadn't seen coming. Shame followed fast, twisting the afterglow into knots. What was he doing? Who was he becoming? Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with green grass and blue eyes. Wyatt's voice murmuring promises Hudson didn't dare unpack. Morning brought a text from an unknown number. Wyatt's. Somehow slipped into his phone during dinner. Ribs were a hit. Next time, I'll show you how to smoke 'em right. Drive safe, kid. Hudson stared at it over coffee, thumb hovering, before typing back, deal. Thanks for the meal. Simple. Safe. But as he headed out for another day of odd jobs, the pull was there, inexorable as gravity. The lawn waited. And so did the man tending it. Weeks blurred into a rhythm, mow, sweat, banter. Wyatt's yard tamed under Hudson's hands, but something wilder grew between them, unspoken, electric. They'd linger after, beers in hand, talking baseball, books. Wyatt devoured Hemingway. Hudson hid his dog-eared copies of Kerouac. The kind of conversations that peeled back layers without drawing blood. Wyatt shared fragments of his past. The marriage that crumbled under the weight of silence. The daughter who visited summers from her mom's place in Albany. Love's a bitch. Huh? Sneaks up, then bites. His voice would roughen, eyes distant, and Hudson would nod, aching to bridge that gap with touch. One sticky Friday, thunderheads rolled in mid-mow, fat raindrops splattering the grass like buckshot. Hudson dashed for cover under the deck's overhang, Wyatt right behind, both drenched in seconds. T-shirts clung transparent, breaths coming fast. Storm's got your number, Wyatt laughed, shaking water from his hair like a dog. Droplets tracing paths down his chest that Hudson followed despite himself. Collarbone to navel, disappearing into denim. They huddled there, shoulders brushing, the air thick with ozone and something muskier. Wyatt's knee knocked Hudson's, stayed put. You ever think about getting out of this grind? Wyatt asked, voice hushed under the downpour. Chasing whatever lights you up? Hudson swallowed, rain trickling down his temple. All the time. But fear's a hell of an anchor. The admission slipped out, raw, and Wyatt turned, face inches away, water beating on his lashes. Fear's just a story you tell yourself. Change it. Their eyes locked, the world narrowing to that space, breath mingling, heat building. Hudson's hand twitched, wanting to trace the line of Wyatt's jaw, to feel the stubble rasp against his palm. But thunder cracked, shattering the moment, and Wyatt pulled back with a wry smile. Better get you home before you rust. The drive was a blur, wipers slapping rhythmically, Hudson's mind replaying the almost touch on loop. At his door, soaked and shivering, he stripped again, but this time the shower brought no shame, only hunger, sharp and insistent. He touched himself thinking of Wyatt's knee against his, the promise in those eyes. Change the story, he'd said. Maybe Hudson was ready to try. Summer deepened, turning the air to soup, and Hudson's routine calcified around Wyatt's place like ivy on brick. Mowing turned ritual, the roar of the engine a prelude, the scent of cut grass mingling with Wyatt's aftershave when he'd wander out with iced tea, condensation beating on the glass like sweat on skin. They'd talk for hours now, post-mow debriefs stretching into evenings, fireflies winking in the gathering dark as cicadas buzzed approval. Hudson learned Wyatt's rhythms. The way he'd hum Springsteen under his breath while whittling on the porch, calluses flexing around the knife. How his laugh boomed when Hudson recounted dorm pranks from Cornell, but softened to something intimate when they veered to dreams deferred. "You're wasted on lawns, kid," Wyatt said one twilight, as they split a six-pack on the tailgate of Hudson's truck. Fireflies dancing like errant thoughts. "Got that artist's eye, saw it in how you lined up the beds last week. Like poetry in dirt." Hudson flushed, picking at the label on his bottle. "Poetry? Nah, just trying not to screw up." But inside, it bloomed validation, warm as the beer sliding down his throat. No one back home had ever seen that in him. The quiet sketches he hid in notebooks. Urban skylines bleeding into rural horizons. Figures blurred at the edges like ghosts of who he might become. "What about you? Building tables for rich folks? That your poetry?" Wyatt snorted, but his eyes turned thoughtful, staring out at the fireflies. "Used to be. Now it's just bills. After the divorce. Shit, it hollows you out. Makes you forget what full feels like." He paused, glancing at Hudson sidelong. "Till something reminds you." The words landed like a spark on dry tinder, and Hudson's breath hitched. Their knees touched again, deliberate this time, Wyatt's thigh solid against his, and neither pulled away. The air hummed, charged as the storm weeks before, but no thunder broke it. Hudson's pulse thrummed in his ears, every nerve attuned to the man beside him. The heat radiating off Wyatt's skin, the faint cedar scent of his soap, the way his chest rose and fell in sync with Hudson's own ragged rhythm. Hudson started, voice cracking like a teenager's, but Wyatt was already moving, slow, deliberate, his hand cupping the back of Hudson's neck, thumb brushing the nape in a stroke that sent fire licking down his spine. Their lips met tentative at first, a question in the press, but Hudson answered fierce, parting for Wyatt's tongue with a gasp that tasted like hops and want. It was messy, hungry, teeth clashing, hands fisting in wet cotton, Wyatt's growl vibrating against Hudson's mouth as he hauled him closer, bodies aligning like puzzle pieces long lost. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, Wyatt's breath hot on Hudson's cheek. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, voice wrecked, fingers tangled in Hudson's hair. But Hudson shook his head, chasing another kiss, smaller this time, sweeter. "Don't you dare." What followed was a revelation. Wyatt's hands mapping Hudson's body like reclaimed wood. Reverent, skilled, coaxing moans Hudson didn't know he could make. They tumbled into the truck cab, space too tight for grace, but perfect for urgency. Shirts rucked up, jeans shoved down, Wyatt's mouth trailing fire down Hudson's chest, nipping at collarbone, navel, lower. Hudson arched, fingers digging into Wyatt's shoulders, the world narrowing to slick skin and whispered curses. When Wyatt took him in hand, slow and sure, Hudson shattered with a cry that echoed into the night, Wyatt following with a shuddering groan, their release mingling sticky and sacred. After, they lay tangled in the truck bed under a quilt Wyatt fetched from the house, stars pricking the sky like promises. Hudson's head pillowed on Wyatt's chest, listening to the steady thump beneath his ear, the rhythm of a heart no longer hollow. "This. Us," Hudson whispered, tracing lazy circles on Wyatt's sternum. "It's real." Wyatt's arm tightened around him, lips brushing his temple. "Real as it gets, kid. Scary as hell, but real." They talked then, halting confessions in the dark. Hudson's buried doubts, the girls he dated to fit the script, the dreams that scared him more than silence. Wyatt's regrets, the closet he'd cracked open too late, the fear of loving again only to lose. It knit them closer, threads of vulnerability weaving something unbreakable. Fall crept in on crisp edges, leaves turning the yard to a riot of red and gold. Hudson's visit stretched. Mowing gave way to maintenance, but really it was excuses. Raking leaves into piles they jumped through like kids, carving pumpkins on the porch with knives that doubled as metaphors for cutting through bullshit. Sex became a language they fluent in. Lazy mornings in Wyatt's king bed, sheets tangled around ankles, Wyatt's weight pinning Hudson in the best way, hurried afternoons against the workshop wall, sawdust clinging to sweat-slick skin. But it was the quiet moments that hooked Hudson deepest. Wyatt reading aloud from The Old Man and the Sea, voice rumbling like distant thunder, Hudson's head in his lap, fingers combing through his hair. Yet cracks spiderwebbed beneath the surface. Wyatt's phone buzzed more at night, texts he silenced with a flick of his thumb, face tightening like a storm front. Work stuff, he'd mutter, but Hudson caught the names, familiar ones, like his ex's best friend from town. Paranoia nibbled at Hudson's edges, but love was a blindfold he wore willingly. Until the night it slipped. It was mid-October, bonfire crackling in the pit they dug together, sparks dancing like fireflies on steroids. Hudson nursed a whiskey, buzzed and bold, when Wyatt's phone lit up on the Adirondack chair beside him. The screen glowed, "Miss you tonight. When you coming back to the city? Hugs and kisses, L." Hudson's stomach plummeted, the name searing like acid. L for Lisa? No. Wyatt had sworn the divorce was clean. No strings. But the kissy emoji, the intimacy, clawed at him. Wyatt emerged from the house with Esmore's fixings, oblivious, but Hudson's voice came out sharp. "Whiskey rough." "Who's L?" "Wyatt, the one who misses you so bad she can't wait." Wyatt froze, marshmallows tumbling from the skewer. "Hudson, it's not. Who is she?" Hudson surged up, chair scraping gravel, firelight carving shadows across his face. Betrayal tasted metallic, mixing with the burn in his throat. Wyatt's silence stretched, damning, until he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Lucas. Old friend from the city. From before." "It's nothing. Nothing." Hudson laughed, bitter, hollow. "Kissy faces ain't nothing. You got someone else? While we're..." "No!" Wyatt stepped close, hands raised like calming a spooked horse. "Lucas is just a ghost. We hooked up years ago, when I was figuring shit out. He texts sometimes, drunk and lonely. I don't respond." Hudson wanted to believe it, the hurt in Wyatt's eyes mirroring his own, but doubt rooted deep. "Then why hide it? Why make me feel like the only one?" He didn't say, voice cracking. Wyatt reached for him, but Hudson jerked back, the bonfire's heat no match for the ice in his veins. "I need air." He stormed to his truck, keys jangling like accusations, Wyatt's pleas chasing him into the cab. "Hudson, wait, talk to me." The engine roared, tires spinning gravel as he peeled out, tears blurring taillights in the rearview. The drive home was a blur of winding roads and what-ifs, Hudson's chest caving under the weight of it all. Betrayal didn't need proof to wound. Suspicion was blade enough. Days passed in radio silence, Hudson's texts unanswered, the yard untended. He threw himself into classes, figure drawing, where the model's lines blurred into Wyatt's profile, lit seminars dissecting heartbreak in Frost's barren woods. Nights were worse. Empty bed mocking him, hand fisting sheets instead of hair, release hollow as the echo of Wyatt's laugh. He almost called a girl from psych class, the one with the pixie cut and easy smile, to prove he could still play straight. But her number stayed undialed. The lie tasted too sour now. On the 6th day, a knock rattled his door at dusk. Hudson opened it to Wyatt, rain-soaked again, flannel clinging, eyes red-rimmed like he'd been carving without pause. "Can I come in?" No cocky drawl, just raw plea. Hudson stepped aside, walls closing in. They stood in the cramped living room, steam rising from Wyatt's clothes, tension thick as fog. "I blocked him," Wyatt said first, thrusting his phone forward like evidence. "Lucas." "Done. And I should have told you from the jump." "No secrets." Hudson crossed his arms, barrier thin as paper. "Why didn't you? Was I just convenient? The small-town experiment while you pined for city lights." Wyatt flinched, stepping closer. "God, no. You're the light, Hudson. The one that scared me shitless because it's real. Lucas was a mistake I buried. You're the rewrite." His voice broke, hand hovering near Hudson's cheek. "I love you, kid. Messy, terrified, all in love. If you'll have me." The words hung, a lifeline or a noose. Hudson searched those blue eyes, vulnerable, stripped bare, and felt the ice crack. He closed the distance, crashing into Wyatt's arms, kissed salt sour with tears and rain. Forgiveness wasn't clean. It was grit under nails, but in Wyatt's hold, Hudson found purchase. They made love on the lumpy couch, slow, ticking, reclaiming every inch as theirs. Winter loomed, but for now, the fire reignited. Yet shadows lingered, whispers of doubt Hudson shoved down. Love was a gamble, after all. And he'd bet big. Winter clamped down on upstate New York like a vice, snow blanketing Wyatt's yard in hush-white silence. The mower traded for Snowblower and shared mugs of spiked cocoa by the hearth. Their rhythm shifted indoors. Lazy Sundays tangled in flannel sheets, Wyatt's workshop becoming Hudson's studio, sketchpads strewn amid lathe shavings, Hudson's pencils capturing Wyatt's form in repose, muscles lax in firelight, a vulnerability no camera could steal. "You're dangerous with those," Wyatt teased one afternoon, peering over Hudson's shoulder at a half-finished portrait. His own face, eyes soft with post-love glow. "Gonna immortalize me as your muse?" Hudson smirked, smudging charcoal with his thumb. "Muse? Nah, just the guy who makes killer pancakes." But inside, it thrilled, the power of line and shadow to hold Wyatt eternal, a talisman against the cold creeping in elsewhere. Their love deepened roots. Wyatt meeting Hudson's profs at a campus holiday party, charming them with tales of my talented partner. Hudson tagging along to Wyatt's shop, charming clients with easy grins while stealing kisses in the supply closet, sawdust-scented and stolen. Yet the idol frayed at edges. Wyatt's daughter, Ellie, arrived for winter break, 13, all braces and attitude, with her mom's sharp chin and Wyatt's blue eyes. Hudson met her awkwardly over pizza at the house, her gaze appraising like a hawk's. "Dad says you're special," she said, popping a pepperoni, the word laced with tween skepticism. Wyatt chuckled, ruffling her hair, But Hudson caught the flicker. Ellie didn't know. Not fully. The divorce stuff's complicated. Wyatt had explained earlier. Voice low. Her mom's conservative. We ease her in slow. Hudson nodded, but the exclusion stung. A reminder of worlds colliding. He played the friend role seamlessly, helping with homework, building snow forts that devolved into epic battles. But Ellie's questions piled like drifts. You live here now? Like, all the time. Her innocence cut deeper than malice, forcing Hudson to confront the half-life they led. Passionate in private, polite in public. Small-town whispers followed, raised eyebrows at the diner when they shared a booth, the hardware store clerk's lingering stare as Wyatt's hand brushed Hudson's at the counter. New Year's brought a fragile peak. A quiet party at Wyatt's. Just them. Champagne fizzing in mismatched flutes. Countdown ticking on an old radio. They made resolutions by the stroke of midnight. Wyatt vowing to finish that oak dining set for a city buyer. Hudson promising to submit his portfolio to galleries in Manhattan. Then, bodies pressed close. Wyatt whispered against his neck. And this us. No more hiding. Full throttle. Come spring. Hudson melted into it, sealing the vow with a kiss that tasted a future's bright as bursting fireworks. Spring thawed the lies first. It started innocuous. A letter in Wyatt's mailbox, forwarded from Albany, Ellie's mom, demanding clarity on Wyatt's lifestyle choices after Ellie let slip about Dad's friend Hudson during a call. Arguments erupted, muffled through thin walls. Wyatt's voice rising in defense, his ex's accusations shrill over speakerphone. You're confusing her. What kind of example is this? Hudson overheard from the kitchen, heart twisting as Wyatt slammed the phone down. She's just scared, babe. It'll blow over. But it didn't. Ellie pulled back. Texts sparse. Visits cancelled with flus and school projects. Wyatt withdrew into work. Sawdust his armor, coming home late with excuses and exhaustion. Hudson filled the voids with freelance gigs, logo designs for local breweries, paying enough to float dreams of his own place, but resentment simmered. We're tiptoeing, he confronted one rainy April night, rain lashing windows like accusations. For her, or for you? Wyatt paced the living room, flannel untucked, face haggard. It's not that simple. Ellie's my world. Can't bulldoze her into this. He stopped, eyes pleading. Give it time. Time bred distance. Hudson crashed at his apartment more. The laundromat's hum a poor substitute for Wyatt's snores. Texts dwindled to logistics. Picking up milk? Passion flickered in stolen moments. A frantic fuck against the fridge. Wyatt's hands bruising in apology. But the spark dimmed, choked by unspoken grief. Then betrayal struck lightning fast. Mid-May, Hudson swung by the shop unannounced, sketchbook in hand for a surprise lunch. The door creaked open to voices. Wyatt's, low and intimate, laced with that rumble Hudson knew too well. Missed this, Wyatt murmured, and Hudson's blood iced. Peering through the slats, he saw it, Wyatt against his workbench, arms around a man tall, polished, city slick in a button-down that screamed Manhattan. Lucas. The ghost resurrected, lips on Wyatt's neck, hands roaming familiar paths. Hudson's world tilted, sketchbook slipping to the floor with a thud. Wyatt jerked back, face draining white. Hudson, shit. Wait, but Hudson was gone, bolting into the rain, truck hydroplaning on slick roads as sobs tore from his throat. Betrayal wasn't suspicion now. It was visceral, a gut punch replaying Lucas's smirk, Wyatt's guilty flinch. He drove aimlessly, past the diner, the fields greening with false promise, until tires crunched gravel back at his apartment. He didn't answer the barrage of calls, the door-pounding pleas. It was a mistake. He showed up. I was weak, please. Baby. Weak. The word festered, echoing every doubt. Hudson curled on the couch. Phone dark. The half-finished portrait of Wyatt mocking from his bag. Eyes that lied. Dawn brought numbness, then fury. He packed a duffel, texted his old roommate in Buffalo about crashing, and ghosted Wyatt's world. Summer returned mocking lawns lush, air thick with bloom, but Hudson mowed for strangers now, each push of the blade a exorcism. Wyatt's texts evolved. Desperate I love used to anguished I ruined us, then silence, heavy as regret. Hudson threw himself into art, fierce abstracts of fractured forms, submitted to a NYC gallery on a whim. Acceptance came via email. A solo show in July, raw, resonant, your voice cuts through. The opening was electric. Soho loft buzzing with critics in black tie casual. Hudson in a borrowed blazer, nerves jangling like keys. His pieces hung stark, entwined roots twisting into severed grain, evoking love's blade edge. Whispers followed him. Who's the muse? So visceral. He smiled tight, sipping cheap Merlot, until a familiar shadow loomed. Wyatt, clean-shaven, suit ill-fitting like his skin, eyes hollowed by weeks of hell. Your work. It's us. Beautiful. Broken. Voice cracked. He thrust a small package. The oak jewelry box Hudson had admired, carved with intertwining vines. I finished it. For you. Even if. Hudson stared. Heart a war drum. Why come here? To twist the knife. Wyatt swallowed. Adam's apple bobbing. To say goodbye right. I fucked up, chased a shadow when I had the sun. But you. You're free now. Shine. He turned, shoulders bowed, but Hudson's hand shot out, gripping his wrist. The touch ignited memory, possibility. Not yet, Hudson whispered, voice trembling. Stay. The loft emptied slow, echoes of laughter fading to clinks of stemware and the hush of afterglow. Hudson led Wyatt to a shadowed corner, away from prying eyes, curators circling like vultures, scents of perfume and ambition thick as fog. They stood inches apart, the package heavy between them, rain from an earlier squall pattering the skylight like hesitant applause. Stay, Hudson repeated, softer now, thumb tracing the pulse in Wyatt's wrist, erratic, alive. But tell me everything. No ghosts this time. Wyatt exhaled, deflating against the wall, the fight leaching from his frame. Lucas. He emailed after Ellie bailed. Said he'd help fix things. Talk to her mom. Smooth it over. Showed up at the shop uninvited. All charm and old habits. I was lost. Hudson. Drowning in the mess I made with you. With her. One drink led to stupidity. But it wasn't you he wanted. It was the me I buried, the easy escape. His eyes, those blue anchors, locked on Hudson's, raw as fresh split wood. I stopped it. Kicked him out. But the damage. God, the damage. Hudson absorbed it, the words a poultice on wounds still weeping. Betrayal's scar throbbed, but beneath pulsed forgiveness's stubborn root, born of bonfires and blueprints, sketches and snow angels. You think running fixes it? We rebuild. Together. Or not at all. Wyatt's hand covered his. Callus's rough poetry. Rebuild how? Ellie's ghosting me. Says I'm weirding her out. Mom's poison's deep. Then we fight poison with truth. Hudson's voice steadied. Artist's resolve igniting. Tell her. About us. The real us, not shadows. Wyatt searched his face. Hope flickering tentative as dawn. You're braver than me, kid. Always were. They left arm in arm. The city a neon blur. Taxis honking symphonies. Steam rising from grates like exhalations. Wyatt's truck waited curbside, a relic from their rural idyll amid urban grit. The drive to upstate unwound tense, then tender, hands clasped over the gearshift, radio low with Dylan crooning of tangled times. They crashed at Hudson's apartment first, laundromat hum a lullaby as dawn bled pink through blinds. Making love was reclamation. Slow, sacred, Wyatt's whispers mapping apologies into skin, Hudson's gasps affirmations. No rush, just presence, bodies remembering what minds had frayed. Morning brought strategy over diner coffee black, scalding, like resolve. Wyatt called Ellie, beaker on, voice steady as oak. Hey, bug. Miss you fierce. Got something to say. No bullshit. She picked up wary. 1,100 miles away in her mom's cookie-cutter sublet. Dad? What's up? Mom's pissed about the holidays. Wyatt leaned into Hudson's side, drawing strength. It's about Hudson. He's not just a friend. He's my partner. The man I love, like how Mom loved her yoga guy before it went south. It's real. Scary, but good scary. Silence stretched. Electric. Then Ellie's voice piped small, like, gay real? That's why Mom flipped. Wyatt affirmed, gentle, and Hudson held his breath as she processed 13-year-old wisdom cutting through. You're still you, Dad. Just with a dude. Gross, but okay. Send pics of the snow forts next time. Relief crashed. Wyatt's laugh wet with tears. Promising visits. Truths unpacked. The call ended lighter. A bridge mended tentative but true. Ellie's mom? A battle for summers. But Wyatt hung up armored. One down. Spring bloomed furious. Hudson's show reviews trickling in. A raw debut pulsing with queer heart. Doors cracking to galleries. Gigs. Wyatt's shop thrived. The oak set fetching top dollar. Proceeds seeding a joint fund. Our escape hatch, he called it. Eyes twinkling over blueprints for a cabin up north. Reclaimed wood. Artist's loft. Space for Ellie's visits. But humanity's arc bent slow, not straight. Town murmurs peaked at the county fair. Wyatt's booth swarmed. Sales dipping as whispers of that carpenter and the boy slithered. A client canceled outright, citing family values, and Wyatt's jaw clenched like vice. Hudson found him in the workshop that night, knife gouging wood too deep, splinters flying. It's bullshit, Hudson said, bandaging a nick, lips brushing knuckles. We're not their story. Wyatt pulled him close, sawdust haloing them. Maybe not. But it's ours. And ours wins. Summer circled back. Full throttle. Hudson's truck rumbling to Wyatt's. Now their yard. mower purring like an old friend. They worked side by side, sweat slick and synced, Ellie's visit looming like a benediction. Love wasn't flawless, no arcs without friction, no desires unscarred, but it humanized them. Wyatt learning vulnerability's grain, Hudson embracing desire's wild rev. They mowed into dusk, hands linking over handles, laughter echoing freer. One evening, as fireflies reclaimed the air, Wyatt dropped to a knee in the grass, ring simple, silver band etched with vines. Came for the lawn, he grinned, voice thick, stayed for the heart. Marry me, Hudson, build forever from the ground up. Tears pricked, joy sharp as first kiss. Yes. Hell yes. They sealed it under stars, bodies merging in the dew-kissed yard. Passionate, promising, poetry in motion. Years folded like well-worn pages. Vows in a backyard ceremony. Ellie flower girl in combat boots. Hudson's gallery in the city. Wyatt's pieces adorning walls. A life woven. Dinners with debates over Hemingway. Quiet nights sketching dreams. Betrayals scarred, but healed into stories. Remember when? Turning pain to power. In the end, desire wasn't revved once. It hummed constant, engine true. Hudson, once adrift, found harbor in Wyatt's arms, the world richer for the risk. Love, American as apple pie and open roads, proved, even broken things, mended right, endure.